Hello, Carol Taylor Kearney here at Pallian Arts, and I am with
Jessica Smith
and
Caroline Carney.
And we are here to talk about the upcoming show, Girl Talk. Girl Talk is about
The female gaze.
and that is
Gaze, G-A-Z-E, not G-A-Y-S, which somebody did say to us. They said, oh, you're saying the female gaze, G-A-Z-E, not the female gaze, like G-A-Y-S. And my immediate thought, I think all three of us had this immediate thought, was there's already a word for that. Several, in fact, the main one being lesbians. Which is not to say that this show will not include female gaze by female gaze.
Yep.
It's just to say that it's not one thing.
exactly. So, Jessica, how would you define
the female gaze
or Girl Talk?
Girl Talk. So this idea originally came from a conversation that Caroline and I had, and we took it from there. I always feel like my perspective as a woman isn't represented within media, so I haven't felt very included within media. And that's what Girl Talk is really about. It's about the feminine perspective, the experiences that we've been through in life, but also the experiences that other generations have had as well that we can reflect upon.
Mm-hmm.
And within that, to get a stricter gender definition, there is a difference between what we think of as the normative gaze, and that is that it's usually the male gaze.
What specifically male gaze?
You specify if you must.
Cisgendered, white, straight, male gaze.
Mm-hmm.
And
whether you like it or not, even historians and anthropologists and scientists, let's just be honest, if you are anti-science, you probably don't like us already, and maybe you should just not hate watch this. But it is largely agreed that historically that is the lens through which we view our society, because common languages are important. They give us a shorthand. But as we have changed as a society and evolved, we're finding that more gazes are necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at least a definition of them, because of course we all grew up under the male gaze being normalized, and now you can feel often a discomfort in this idea that we have these other visions, and how does that work? And of course, every person has a vision, and it goes back as much into their experience. So what is a male gaze? For us, we can interpret it. But what happens when we are getting the female gaze, which tends to be more subjective, a little more empathetic, and
more narrative.
Yeah.
It tends to be less about the object and more about the story.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's interesting about that is that, and we've kind of already alluded to this, is we are all obviously women, female presenting women. And the thing is, though, is that all of us grew up speaking and understanding the male gaze because it is the common language of our society. To your point, in media, it is the central character.
Yes.
But women have been having perspectives, and other voices have been having perspectives for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're looking at them and finding
a new way,
I think, joy in it.
Yeah.
So.
And a new way of experiencing the world, which is always a good thing. So, with that in mind,
what are we looking for
in our pieces? And we have some pieces that we've collected from our present show, I Spy. So I am going to hand a piece. Is this one good?
Yeah. Thank you.
To Jess.
So, what do I want to say about this? We can cut this part.
Behind the Shades by Deborah Miller is that piece.
Okay.
And how is that, do you think, a female gaze?
So, I'm trying to think about what I'm going to say. Sorry.
No.
I think it's female gaze. I don't know if you guys would agree with this, because it's a portrait of a woman done by a woman, and she's not being sexualized within it, right?
Right.
She's just existing.
Yeah.
And I also think that this piece gives her personhood as well, because of, she's not being sexualized, but also because
Caroline.
Well, she's hidden. She's under glasses.
yes,
And yet she's very stylish. She has the big earring.
Carol earlier said it calls onto our instinctual love of growing up women's magazines.
yes,
Yep.
yes, definitely. I also think that there's this person has like an individualized style
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Whereas it might not be what is considered, I guess, conventionally attractive.
Yeah.
Do you know, she's a little
It doesn't care about
alternative.
the male objectification of finding her attractive.
Mhm.
No, because
she
Deb
has
has gone-
stylized
Yes.
herself.
No. Deb has stylized her herself because she has abstracted from the shape and added additional shapes and colors in there that aren't necessarily true to how we see skin in the world, bodies in the world.
And I think that gives her personhood, and it gives her like a sense of agency.
Yeah.
Whereas like sometimes when men paint women, they are doing the opposite.
Mhm.
So I think that's why this would fit.
I also think it's kind of cool the way she's like looking away from it.
Yeah, she doesn't care.
It's like, and I love this artist. We went to see the Matisse show, and some of his sculptures were literally just blank faces with boobs.
Whereas this is the opposite. This is face
Face forward.
This is just face.
This, Manosphere 3 by Dolores Pacelli, is also the female gaze because it is using breast-like and phallic objects all together, aligned within a scope, and she's exploring, I'm not sure exactly what she's exploring, but definitely for sure. Phallic symbolism versus, is there an artist word for the equivalent of like breast? These look like boobs to me, is I guess what I'm saying.
And I thought they were zygotes.
I thought there was zygotes as well.
They're eggs. They're
All right,
fertilized
fine.
eggs.
I'm sorry.
Dolores, if you see this, you can tell us which one of us was right. Actually, we're all right. Zygotes.
And Joyce. I love Joyce, nice.
Yeah, talk
I
about
feel like
Joyce.
Carol. Like Carol. No.
Yeah, it's Carol's turn.
Carol's turn.
Oh,
Carol told me not to sit in a V, and I did anyway.
yeah, because she does stuff like that.
Mixed.
Anyway, this is by Joyce Hagan. And Joyce is interesting because she is a quilter, and throughout all time, quilting is considered a woman's.
It's a craft.
The craft,
It's,
yeah.
It's
it's
craft.
a woman's type of artwork, which is not considered as serious.
I consider
And-
it fine.
Right. Now, of course, craft work, particularly quilt making, has taken off in the art world. Everybody is doing
Yeah,
it.
and we have another great example of it up at the top called Sometimes We're Interrupted, the 3 canvases with the elongated female figure, which is also fiber art by Cheryl Patton Wu. But yeah, of course it's, and we
Also
have
exhaling.
Exhaling by
Cheryl
Yeah, we have several fiber artists who show with us pretty frequently, and one of the discussions that a lot of them had, they're all women, was, do you accept this? Because we find that a lot of times this gets shown in craft, but Carol and I, and now Jess, we've made her an accolade, are of the opinion that all fine craft and fine art is indistinguishable in what we call contemporary art. So,
If Arthur Danto can say, at the end of art is the beginning of art, and what happens is the walls have broken down between these
siloed.
areas. Artists are now free to use whatever means carries their message. And Joyce has done a beautiful job here because not only is this fine craft of quilting,
It's also
but it's
women's work.
also, right, it's women's work, and it is also an abstracted artwork that includes things like wire, things like beading, things like little sparklies here. And she's free to go and include all of these things and make a very wonderful abstraction that we can all enjoy.
I'm pulling this one right now because it picks up on the same kind of thing. Carol, I'm going to put it for you. And we can all kind of talk about it.
Mhm.
This is, I believe, it's on the back. It's called Untitled Dream. I was going to say it's about a dream by Sandra Benheim. This is a watercolor. Does anybody know why I'm pointing that out, that it's a watercolor?
Because that was considered women's work.
Yeah.
It wasn't considered serious, although some of Sargent's most beautiful paintings also are watercolors. And don't even have me start talking about Constable. He had oil paintings, but he did his plein air generally in watercolor, and they are considered better sometimes than his oil paintings.
I'm going to go one step further. You could not make a man a good wife if you were not a good watercolorist back in the day.
Mhm.
Like, you had to show them.
You also had to be a
Pastels.
poetess. You also had to be a poetess.
Piano
You had to-
player.
Speak
Singer.
different languages.
Who has time for this?
Well, that's what Jane Austen said.
That is true. So, but we also thought this was interesting because it's abstracted watercolor. Well, water medium, I should say.
Yes.
But also, it's about a dream, and there is a giant baby head in here. Sandra said it's not definitely a baby head, but I read that as a baby head.
It's baby head.
And it's also about an internal monologue in a woman's mind.
Yeah. This piece is by Maureen Bowie, and it's called Empty Nest, and it is it's made up of components that she's taken out of homes.
Yeah, or that people
Particularly her own.
particularly her own home, but yeah, that people give her from like different homes and different projects and stuff.
And it's about a woman, right? I feel like I'm messing this up.
I always find it fascinating that you're not messing up. I always find it fascinating because Maureen would never say this, and if Maureen is watching this, she would go, "You guys think of so many things." But basically, Maureen is taking components of her houses, relatives' house, things that are given to her. Then she's making a little home, and then she's assemblaging it with thoughts and things from her own life. Like she's a piece that has the what's called the plan to her whole lot as the backing to it.
Mhm.
And so basically, within the work, she's ruminating on renovating her house after her
And
kids
renovating her own life for after her kids
have moved out, which is an important thing
have gone by.
that all people get through, but men don't talk about it as much as women, I don't think, because we think of women to the point of this being a house in more of the domestic sphere, which I think is kind of cool.
But men paint the domestic sphere.
But historically, the domestic sphere has been, men paint the, yes, I get what you're saying. Carol wants us to point out, I think by the cue she just gave me, that men are perfectly capable of entering the show because this is not a show for women, this is about the female gaze for everyone. Just like all three of us, Zoomer, Boomer, Millennial, can all go and point out like the male gaze and things. Anyone of any background is capable of putting the lens in front of them through which you view. And so this is about anyone of any identity looking through this particular lens and coming up with something. And there's lots of resources online for you to look at to set your lens.
I feel like the show is about inclusion and not exclusion.
Yes.
And that's the most important part.
Yes.
Yes.
I love these. Go ahead, Mom.
Yes.
Carol, don't call her Mom.
Okay. So this is from a series by
Heyman.
Well, her name's
E. Sherman Heyman.
Thank you.
Because at the time she started, you were supposed to have a gender non-specific name, which is what she told me the other day, because this is from a series called She Was the Kind of Person.
And she was the kind of person, and you can see it says here, who longed to spend leisure moments in exotic bookstores while books piled up at home because she had so little time to read. And I think as a book reader who has piles of books, I identify closely with this. And
also it really says something about the inner life of like women. So it's nice to have this idea that like women like to luxuriate in finding these experiences, but then we're so busy, we don't even have time.
But it's also like what we're consuming as well.
Yes.
Because I feel like media has portrayed women to be like vapid, when in actuality we have our own thoughts and we can read, you know?
Well, I also find it interesting because we tend to, in our society, deride rom-coms, which tend to be more...
not in our household.
Not in our household. We are a rom-com family. But we also do watch Reacher, which I call camp for men. And the blood is the glitter. So enjoy that, everyone. But the thing is...
At the same time, we're flicking back and forth to Hallmark movies.
But it's all about the lens
Yes.
of that.
And that's what we're looking for, actually. We're looking for a lens that takes us to a spot where we can say, oh, it could be amusing, it can be thoughtful, it could be sensitive, it could be deriding.
It could be this piece by by Jonathan Greenberg called Flowers and Pollinators, which is literally male gaze versus female gaze in that. And so it actually is a perspective on, it could be, sorry Jonathan if you're not into this, it could be viewed as a juxtaposition between the binary, which we don't really know if it exists anymore, even many of us think it doesn't, but I digress, on what we accept as two of the genders. What's called flowers, vulvas, and pollinators, phallic.
Well,
Carol's like, we're cutting this.
even within it. But you can look on this wall, see any number of
Orange Glad, which is about orange blossoms.
Yep.
And
well, look at the city over there.
well, it's made a lot with jewelry and what's called, but we tend to think of architecture as more masculine, and yet it's made of objects that are primarily feminine.
Yeah.
And then we have this beautiful portrait up here, which also has some lovely, very feminine pieces.
Yeah, flowers.
Yeah.
The colors would be considered more feminine, and yet she has such a vibrance out there. But the face.
She has a direct
Yes.
look. She's looking
It's
directly
like,
at
what's the one that you're talking about by Manet? Is it
Olivia.
Olympia is considered one of the first female gaze pieces in major art because
Well, just because she was a 16-year-old
sex worker who was looking
model. She was a 16-year-old model who's looking directly at the viewer.
refusing to be objectified.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This I think is interesting. It's called Three Bears. It's obviously and like referring to Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And what's interesting about this is that it's taking the female protagonist and putting her in the wild with the bears. And so it's her telling her own story, which I like. This is by Darlene Foster. Yeah.
This piece is by Jenna Nato, and it's called Diana. It's obviously a portrait of Princess Diana. And I think this piece would fit into Girl Talk very well because it is a feminist icon, like Princess Diana.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a very feminine color palette as well. And I also think that a lot of this like kind of flowery language in it as well would fit the theme.
Well, it's also an iconic image that ties closer to either Russian iconography or even Middle Ages iconography.
And like the
way
Greek
that
Orthodox
Yeah.
iconography.
So within it, and I love things like how she did the cheeks. There's a flower here. Is this like a planet or a moon? You know, the crown.
There's also something nice about the way she has semi-abstracted it into almost a like there are parts of it that seem almost cubistic or
Yeah.
from Picasso's blue period.
Yeah.
And we tend to think of Picasso, man, and yet she has
feminized
beautifully
this.
feminized this.
Yeah.
Not only that, Picasso's blue period and pink period are two of his most romantic periods.
I also wanted to bring up, this is Lisa Galoon's piece. It's called Life Balance. And within it, there's pictures of flowers and stencils, and she puts music in there, and she's using all different kinds of materiality. And also, I think that a thing that a lot of people talk about, but specifically women as we started having more independence in the professional sphere, is work-life balance. And so I like that this is called Life Balance, and there's little pieces of her domestic sphere which are spread throughout this. This is in caustic. And I think that that's beautiful. And she's done like little lace overlays and things like that. So I think that this works really well too.
Yeah. So we are giving you little clues as to some subject matter you can touch.
Why did I give you that one?
Oh, the Daruma? The Daruma, which is made by
Saya Okayama.
Thank you. But I could have said that myself. At least Saya, I could say. But I love to think of these. You can see that this is a geisha, but also she has done bunnies and doggies and cats.
And ducks.
Oh, dog. She did a dog.
The duck.
She did a Shiba Inu,
Yes.
which is a dog, but you know.
But all of these are figurative, and yet at the same time they represent a wish. When first done, one eye is painted on where a wish is made, and the second eye doesn't get painted on until after the wish is fulfilled.
And I like that this woman contains a wish.
Yes. And not only that, she's a fulfilled wish. So if you buy her, you already have one of your wishes fulfilled.
But that's not what this is. That's not what this is about. This is about how beautifully decorative and feminine and how this is the female gaze as
Not
well.
only that, everybody has wishes.
Everybody has wishes. That's true.
And you can direct your wishes right here to Colleen Arts, and we will be happy to present you with this for a certain amount of money.
We're cutting that part out. But hopefully, do you guys feel like, I feel like we have given a lot of different examples of
Yes.
female gaze. Most of the pieces on this wall, including Persephone, who's one of the three Furies up at the top with the feathers and the, what's called, this is called, and the feathers and the
glove, and then there's another portrait in there.
Yeah.
You can see it.
Or Nate Rakowski with the figures in his composition up at the top, that would be your right. The top right, what I like about what he does with abstracting his figures is he's looking at figures in movement and capturing the line and the shape and not objectifying them. Carrie is telling the story, we assume, of something to do with her father because 44 was her father's police number. And I just think that there's a lot that can be said within a lot of the pieces in our shows and in this show and in Girl Talk that show the female gaze.
Right.
And a lot of it's just about nuance.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good.
So
No, this is for Jess. In conclusion,
In conclusion, submissions are due by midnight
On.
March.
I say 11:59 p.m. because midnight, I never know whether it's the day before
Yeah.
or the day after. So we always say 11:59 p.m.
Okay.
on March 5th.
Okay. So in conclusion, submissions are due 11:59 March
PM.
5th p.m. And our opening party is April 5th. So you guys should come down because it'll be a great time.
Yeah.
It's always a great time.
yep. And you get to meet all three of us.
Yeah.
It's true. And we know this was a long video, but we also know that people had a lot of questions about this one, and so we were trying to be thoughtful in the way we answered. So, because we have a lot of fun themes, and this is a fun theme,
Mm-hmm.
I think, but it also is like a very thoughtful theme, which for us, I think, is like all three of us, we love a theme that is like both thoughtful and a party.
Not only that, it was a collaboration.
It's a collaboration.
Cross-generational
That's
collaboration.
right. 3 strong women. Hope to see some of your work. Bye.